Well, how wonderful to welcome you to this month's BookBlast Translation Book Club here at Hatchards. And very exciting, not only are we featuring a wonderful novel, Elena Knows, but Claudia Piñeiro is here in person. And the publisher from Charco. Wow, so it's really exciting. And Francis Riddle is the translator, and is published by Charco. So this is a very special discussion. To introduce Claudia, for those of you who do not know, but I assume you do, is the third most translated Argentinian writer after Luis Borges and Julio Cortázar. Sorry, my accent is not. She has won numerous national and international prizes and is known internationally for her crime novels, but also writes other fine novels which scrutinize contemporary Argentine society, and Elena Knows is one. And it was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize in 2022, and there is a film on Netflix.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming today. I am going to speak in Spanish because my English is not so good. I can't be clever enough in English.
So my first question, Claudia. Elena Knows explores the themes of illness, the mother-daughter relationship, personal choice to be a mother, and the oppressive social expectations placed on women. What inspired you to explore these subjects, and especially through Parkinson's disease, which Elena is suffering from?
Principalmente el personaje central de Elena sabe tiene esa enfermedad porque mi madre tenía esa enfermedad.
So the central character, Elena has that disease because Claudia's mother suffered from that disease. So
you can research about the illness, but when you look at the illness every day, it's not the same.
when Claudia's novel was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, a psychiatrist wrote to her and said, how on earth did you do such good research, because the variant of Parkinson that Claudia describes in the novel it's only developing 5% of the cases of Parkinson's disease. So Claudia replied to this gentleman and said that even though she'd done a lot of research, it was mostly empirical research because she was looking at this disease every day through her mom's disease. And the guy said, well, it's the most painful, but also the most accurate research that I can read about.
And of course, I'm not Rita, and my mother is not Elena. And what happened in the
Yes, because they have quite a fractious relationship, don't they?
What I want to do is to poner una cámara en primer plano sobre el cuerpo de mi mamá.
So what Claudia wanted to do was to put like a camera, if you imagine the lens, a close-up lens on her mom. So it was something that Claudia purposely wanted to do because she noticed through the experience with the mother that people start looking away from the ill person. And it's something that Claudia says Susan sometimes talks about in this book. I don't know the name.
La enfermedad y sus metáforas.
Illness and its metaphors?
It's a book about cancer, and then she wrote a new one about cancer and HIV. But she talks about being ill and many metaphors about illness.
What you're saying, the narrative unfolds through Elena's internal monologue. So what happens is her daughter is found hanging, suicide in the belfry of the church, but she refuses to believe that the daughter committed suicide because she never went near a church because she was terrified if it rained she would get electrocuted. And there was this whole rather ambiguous, ambivalent relationship, of course, with the Catholic Church. But anyway, what's interesting, so then there's her thoughts. She looks at people thinking, oh, they're just going to think I'm an old biddy and I'm ill. This sort of age. So it's also, in a way, a study of ageism, actually, for me, when I was reading. As you get older, whether you're seen or not, but it is, you actually feel very frustrated because there's that awful feeling of feeling unheard.
So for this novel, Claudia was very aware, exactly like you say, George, about the frustration, and she thought about how to change her prose exactly so as to manifest these frustrations.
Es como una prosa que arranca y gira sobre sí misma hasta que vuelve a arrancar.
Claudia's saying that it's a prose that starts and stops, like it doesn't flow and it's not so direct like in her other books. It's consciously having this effect of going in itself, like turning on itself, exactly to manifest this frustration. Claudia wanted to convey or to work out was that the reader would start knowing more than Elena, and he or she, we would have to wait until Elena starts knowing or starts finding out. So that effect's also very present in the prose itself, that the reader would learn more than Elena herself.
Well, actually, in Argentina, how are illnesses like Parkinson's dealt with in health? Because a lot of your other novels you do, and also through your early crime novels that got you going here in England, you know, you see a lot about Argentine society.
So the crux of it is, well, Claudia wrote this novel in 2007, so it's about, 18, did we say 18? Yeah, 18 years ago, 17, 18 years ago. So back then, the health system was already, it wasn't perfect and they had a lot of problems, but it's much worse now. And there's always been a policy where people could get free health care, but that's been in decline progressively and more so with this current government.
Now, Carolina, I'm going to ask you a bit about Charco Press. So Charco Press, there's a lot of wonderful independent publishers in this country putting out some fantastic books that, in my view anyway, and I think a lot of us believe that, are not known enough. So Charco Press is known for championing voices from Latin America, and of course Claudia Piñeiro's work absolutely aligns perfectly with that focus. But what is it? Well, a bit about your press and a bit about what it is about Claudia, especially in her storytelling, how it resonates with the values and vision of your list.
I'm from Argentina originally myself, and I've been here in the UK for...
in Edinburgh, of course.
In Edinburgh, yes. For over 20 years. When I would try and buy books to share with friends, or books from Latin America, I would always come. I'm sure a lot of people here are nodding. Come to find the same authors. Most of them men, except for Isabel Allende maybe, but a handful of authors in the biggest bookshops. And I would go back to Argentina and to other Latin American countries for conferences, and there was so much going on, so much being studied, being researched, being published, kind of risque voices, and I thought, wow, we're so behind in the UK. And that's how the idea for Charco came about, to try and the main question at the beginning was what do we do? Do we start filling the gaps of going back to the 50s or to the 1900s and start from there to go with this wasn't published, or do we start with contemporary fiction and try and fill some gaps then? So that's what we did. We grabbed 5 Argentinian authors to start with, to give the readers in the UK but also in the US an idea of how from one single country in Latin America you had 5 very different voices writing very different styles and about very different things. I had this idea of approaching Claudia because I thought, Claudia's never gonna say yes to tiny Charcos just starting. But I was very keen to publish Claudia because, well, as you said in the introduction, she's currently probably the most translated Argentinian author because
alive.
Exactly.
Well, there's a rather wonderful
Sublimely.
Quote, I don't know, Ricardo Piglia. He says that she's created a new literary genre, paranoid fiction. Everyone is a suspect, everyone feels pursued. And actually you do feel that slightly, even it's true, there's that terrible angst of, that's a wonderful...
He was an academic and he studied a lot about crime fiction, and he has this idea of paranoid fiction that is wonderful, I think.
It is brilliant. You've published 3, it's 3, isn't it? A Little Luck.
Yes,
so
and Elena Knows, and
so
there's cathedrals coming next year.
Cathedrals, okay. And what are, so in brief time, because of Time of the Flies, one will cover,
Esas novelas tienen algún elemento del policial, algún elemento, pero no llegan a constituirse como novelas policiales, sobre todo porque rompen con la pregunta clásica de un policial, que sería quién lo mató y por qué.
So they all have a crime element, but they don't completely fit into the genre of crime novel because they don't answer neatly to the question who died and why.
Yeah.
So in the case of Elena Knows, the reader starts wondering very quickly, why is Elena insisting on, or why is she not realizing why? That's the main question instead of who killed. And in the case of Time of the Flies, which is the most recent novel Claudia's published and we published, the questions are towards the future. So if you haven't read it, it's like, what are these two women, the two main characters, what are they going to do with this proposal? Are they going to, fall prey of the temptation? Are they going to go back to jail?
Anyone would like to kick off with a question or a thought? Or yes, Judith.
The book was absolutely wonderful. My husband passed away 4 years ago, and he didn't pass away because of Parkinson's, but he had Parkinson's for many years. And your description of living with someone with Parkinson's and dealing with it was just so incredibly moving. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, there are slight moments of humor in there. Did you feel compelled to add a little bit of humor in, or did it come naturally?
The matter is that my mother has very good humor, a little black humor, but she has and for example, I remember being with her to the hospital, and when we get the place and we have to go out the car, my mother couldn't, and she started to laugh, and we fall together and we laugh because she always tried to see the laughing part of the life. And for example, one day I saw her this because she has a problem in the neck, and she was moving, and she told me, I think I could study piano because it's a perfect decision. I like very much English writers because they have a kind of humor different for another countries, no? Like ironic humor. I like it very much. So I was not feel compelled. When you are writing about something very, very stressing or very sad, you need to have some kind of relief. But in this book, my mother was that person, so I need to put her humor there.
Anyone else?
Did your mother read your book?
No, sorrowfully.
Sadly.
Sadly, she dies before I could finish it.
And in writing the book, did you feel closer? Or?
Yes, I feel closer, and I feel she would like it. I feel she would laugh of the book, and she would like to be the main character of the book too. And I think she could see that I was going to be a writer. She read some of my books, but only the two ones, I think, because she dies quite young. I think.
It's interesting, sort of. I think what I can gather, you said that it's kind of a crime novel, but sort of it isn't. And the reason actually I see that it's a crime, not because sort of the superstitious and the belief that mother actually has, but more or less the corruption of the police.
What interests Claudia the most when she's writing the novels is the crime that's hidden behind the crime that we see that looks like the main crime.
Y muchas veces parece que el crimen es lo que está delante y el crimen es lo que la sociedad hizo para que devenga esa situación. En el caso de Elena, bueno, ¿qué hizo la sociedad con estas dos mujeres para que terminen de esta manera?
So in this case of Elena is what has society done that led these two women to be in that situation that they are in the end, or what the actual
That's in a lot of all your novels. Because I was thinking, going back actually to Betty Boo.
Yes.
There, it's a lot. It's all corruption, sex, and nepotism going hand in hand. And in this book, there's the crime of the church, because also the young woman who is forced to not. I mean, I don't want to. Well, yeah, there's a young woman who is forced to not have an abortion. politics, morals that can completely intrude on someone's life and the family, and it just changes everything. That's very much in this, not in all your novels. I mean, that's how I read it.
No, yo creo que casi todos los libros que yo escribo son libros que están atravesados por una historia de la Argentina donde hubo una dictadura y hubo y hay
So Claudia is saying, yeah, indeed, she's following from what you said and coming back to her idea that in a country like Argentina, with a recent, well, not so recent, but a recent dictatorship in our lifetime, that's still behind not just personal lives, but also in the institutions. So it carries inevitable consequences. In this other novel that it's forthcoming with Charco called Cathedrals, only person that under Argentinian law would be guilty, it's the one person that we as readers think, well, they shouldn't be the criminal.
The others are not condemned, and maybe they should be. Yes.
Did your Elena Knows, your book, did it have an influence politically?
So interestingly, when Claudia first published this book in 2007, in Argentina, back then having an abortion was illegal. So the topic of abortion in the novel was unseen or untalked about because people weren't talking about abortion. You couldn't really. And it's only when the book was nominated and shortlisted for the Booker in 2022 that the book was republished again in Argentina, and after abortion, having an abortion became legal, it then became a topic, and people were saying to Claudia, oh, almost like I didn't realize that you were talking about this in this novel.
Denial, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I really like your books and also that of other Argentinian authors, women, because there's always a lot of social commentary about issues like corruption, Catholic Church, abortion, etc. Is this like a tradition, or where does it come from? Is it a thing, or is it not? Has it inspired you? Is there a tradition of this in Argentinian writers?
Yo creo que hay una tradición de escritura política en la literatura argentina. El libro que se supone que es el libro que instala la literatura argentina es El Matadero, que es un libro absolutamente...
There is a tradition of political writing in Argentina, of writing being political, that in effect starts for Claudia with El Matadero, and it's about two actual political factions. So for Claudia, that's the start of the Argentinian being a political literature. On the other hand, our most important author, Jorge Luis Borges, was not a political writer. Latin America, as a region, it's a region that's in utter effervescence with dictatorships and revolutions, and it's like a volcano constantly about to erupt somewhere or the other. So there's a lot to always tell. What Claudia likes very much is when books are political or talk about politics, but not in an explicit way, but rather the opposite. So she gives the example of Samantha Schwebl's Fever Dream, that talks about agrochemicals and the corruption behind agrochemicals being used in the countryside to grow crops, etc. So
I wanted to see what you think about this phenomenon, because I have my own thoughts, but I would like to know your thoughts about so many Argentinian particularly female writers like yourself, María Enríquez, Samantha Schweblin, also like Selva Almada, Agustina Bastarrica, being so famous internationally, because people, most of yourself and the other writers, their stories, for me as an Argentinian, they feel so deeply Argentinian, but I see young people in TikTok raving about these stories. So what do you think the appeal is?
it's not the curiosity of the curiosity that readers back in the 60s or 70s or up until recently had for the so-called boom writers of the 60s and 70s.
García Márquez, Vargas Llosa.
Very different.
That had to do with the region itself, with being interested in those authors because they came from Latin America. So it's not that.
Hoy geopolíticamente Latinoamérica no le interesa a nadie más que a nosotros. quiero que eso te quede claro.
So today, Claudia is saying geopolitically, she wants to make clear that, in her opinion, no one cares about Latin America and its geopolitics.
Which makes it
Con lo
more
cual hace más importante. Por eso lo que digo es,
So there's a text that's quite a reference point for Claudia by Deleuze and Guattari called For a Minor Literature. I don't know the titles in English, or for a lesser literature.
minor.
A minor, for
Sí,
a minor
minor,
literature. There are writers who write from the margins of power. So that center can be a geopolitical place, or it can be a place of power, of say men or certain social strata. And so the writers who write in opposition to that center write, Deleuze and Guattari write, like a rat excavating through a cave to reach that place, and that reflects in the writing.
Going back to Elena, the way I read Elena, after the first few chapters, whatever, I thought Elena was an unreliable narrator. Because I read it that way, then I didn't see the policeman as being patronizing or not seeing her because she was an older lady and so on. I saw her, the way I imagined, she'd already been there many times before when the book started. So did you write her as an unreliable narrator?
Sí, yo lo pensé como
No
confiable. Sí, primero con respecto a lo que dijo antes,
Claudia very much enjoys writing with non-reliable narrators, but in this case she didn't think of Elena as one. Only afterwards she realized that, as we as readers do, that Elena was a non-reliable narrator. Something very peculiar happened to Claudia when she was writing Elena that doesn't usually happen with her other novels, which is she usually knows how the novel's going to end as she's writing.
More or less.
But halfway through Elena, she had to stop, and she was blocked, and she had to change the way the novel was going to end. And she thinks now that it was when she realized that Elena was an unreliable narrator. So when she was first started working on the novel, that in Claudia's mind, the novel was called The Body of Others, or The Other's Body.
Porque siempre hay alguien haciendo o opinando sobre el cuerpo de otro en la novela, ¿no?
Because in the novel there's always someone doing or having an opinion about the body of someone else.
Hi Claudia, thank you so much. Very interesting, and I'm a huge fan of your books. I wanted to ask a quick question about A Little Luck, if that's okay. In the novel, there's obviously the present story, and then there's the story in the past, and you layer the two really well, and so just so subtly, and it feels so smoothly done, and at the end they kind of come together. And I was wondering what your creative process is behind that.
Creo que Una Sombra Pequeña trabaja básicamente sobre el dolor.
Claudia's saying every novel that she writes has a central feeling, and in A Little Luck, that feeling, that emotion is pain or sorrow. And in the way she was writing or approaching this feeling was to try and bring the past little by little in the way, or in a similar way as memory works, that we don't remember, fluidly the whole thing. We remember snippets, and it's in a way it's what pain or sorrow allows us to, how we can go back to paint through droplets, as it were, not the whole experience.
That's why I wrote it in such a way.
Obviously, Rita's place of death is kind of very intentional to develop the plot, but it's also, as far as I understood it, it's like to spare the mother and her feelings and, the outcome of her choice, of her daughter's choice. So how well do we know those people who are around us, and, is there more to it?
De Rita y de Elena, a veces hay gente que me dice, no, ¿por qué no se querían? Yo creo que sí se querían.
People often say to Claudia, well, why didn't they love each other? And Claudia thinks it's not that they didn't love each other. She thinks that they did love each other in their own way. Indeed, perhaps they loved each other so much that that's why Rita ended up the way she did. It was the way they handled that love that wasn't maybe ideal, but they did love each other. So in most of Claudia's novels, she goes back to the mother-daughter relationship, and she tries to question it, because it's not always is the case that it's a fruitful or it doesn't always come out well or the way it should, and she thinks that that's quite realistic, and that it shouldn't be idealized, that it should be questioned and dealt with.
Thank you.
Thank you.